Welcome to the American Moving and Storage Association's Packing and Loading Techniques for Containerized Moves. The American Moving and Storage Association and its education and international committees would like to thank these members for their tireless efforts in writing, revising, providing support, and information for the containerization training. This course will be presented in 3 sections: packing, wrapping and inventorying, preparing the container, and loading the container. As you prepare to pack a shipment of household goods, it's best to start thinking about how the goods are going to be moved as they are being packed. If the goods are going to be containerized, most often, damage occurs because inadequate or insufficient packing materials are used. The second most frequent cause of damage is improper preparation of the shipping container itself. The reuse of packing materials should be avoided unless the materials are in sound condition and adequate for the use employed. All materials, whether new or used, should be dry, clean, and free from any foreign matter. When preparing a shipment to be containerized, you will be using most of the standard boxes with which you are familiar, but there are a few new boxes with which you will be less familiar. In most cases, you will also be using the packing techniques that you use daily. Let's take a quick look at some of the boxes and packing material with which you are probably less familiar. If you are not already using a parts box, it is a great way to pack and ship all the hardware for the furniture that you disassemble. It should be the first box listed on the inventory. The parts box should also be the last box loaded, and the container in which it is loaded should be marked. As you disassemble a piece of furniture, place all the hardware in a zip-top or sealed bag and label the bag with the piece of furniture, the room, and the inventory number. It is also good practice to notate on the inventory that there is hardware for the piece of furniture in the parts box. Once you start loading the shipment, the parts box should be the last box loaded and clearly marked "Open First" on the box itself and the outer container. The flat wardrobe box is used in place of a standard hanging wardrobe for containerized shipments for one simple reason: it takes up less space and will add to the density of the shipment. If you must use traditional hanging wardrobe containers, consider filling the bottom with pillows or cushions. This will help increase your density by not packing these items in another box and filling some empty space. Be aware that there are some national accounts and governmental agencies that prohibit packing additional items in the bottoms of wardrobe boxes, so check with your dispatcher before beginning to load in this manner. The majority of all packed products or goods require filler to act as cushioning, protecting against vibration and shock, or to prevent items from rubbing against one another in boxes or crates. This is especially important with containerized shipments. Once the shipment is containerized, it may be shipped over air, sea, rail, or truck. Each mode can be rough on household goods if they are not properly packed and prepared. Let's look at some common filler, dunnage, and wrapping materials. Unprinted newsprint is the most common material used to provide protection to individual items placed into a moving carton. Properly used, it is an excellent cushioning material. Bubble wrap is frequently used, although it is most effective when employed as cushioning in small containers. Shredded paper and styrofoam pellets are widely used and inexpensive fillers. Styrofoam offers additional protection to delicate items. However, like shredded paper, it is messy to unpack. The last set of materials that may be new to you are the wrapping materials. While you may have used paper pads, you are probably less familiar with microfoam. Both of these can be used in place of traditional pads or blanket wrapping in skins. 5-ply paper pads are the most commonly used wrapping material for containerized moves. The first thing to remember is because of the handling requirements of a containerized shipment, you must use extra padding materials when you are packing any breakable items. For containerized shipments, you will still need to use your company's preferred packing method. The most common way to pack containerized shipments is to begin by placing several sheets of newsprint in the bottom of the box for extra protection. In this case, our packer is using crumpled newsprint. Then tightly pack each item or bundle. Our packer is loading a dish crate and has started loading bundles of dishes upright in the bottom of the container. When you are packing layers, make sure to cushion them with extra filler between each layer. Watch as he finishes loading the lighter glassware on top, using corrugated paper around each to add additional protection. The final step is to fill any remaining space, top and sides, with spare packing materials. It is vital that no shifting or movement occurs within the carton during transport. Remember, this technique can be used for packing any box. As a reminder, items such as record albums, books, small paintings, and mirrors should never be packed flat. They should be placed upright in the cartons to avoid damage. Most pictures and mirrors can be packed safely by using paper blankets and picture packs. Be sure these items are packed securely to avoid movement in transit. Consider creating glass and marble tabletops, pool table slates, pianos, and motorcycles. Not everything in a household should be packed. Items like cushions lend themselves nicely as filler in open spaces to help increase your density. When there are open spaces left in cabinets, hutches, and entertainment centers, they can easily be filled with cushions, pillows, blankets, stuffed animals, etc., rather than packing these lightweight, bulky items separately. If you are using standard wardrobe boxes and the customer allows, fill the bottom of the carton with pillows, linens, shoes, etc. Finally, note the type of mattress being packed to allow for better handling. Some newer mattresses are very expensive to replace and will need special handling and positioning to ensure their safe transit, so labeling them correctly with the type of mattress is critical. There are some items that should never be packed. This is a brief list. In general, you should not pack things that might put the truck in danger or damage items in the shipment. You should also be aware of any items that have extremely strong odors, since those can penetrate the rest of the shipment and any other shipments that may be loaded on the truck with it. If you have a question about whether or not something should be packed, ask your lead packer or dispatcher. Finally, be sure to mark each carton with a non-bleeding marker as you seal it. Identify the customer's name, detailed contents, and the room where it was packed. Following these basic steps will assist in the inventorying process and at destination when packers unload the shipment at the customer's new home. Some final reminders as you are packing a containerized shipment. Add additional filling material to the tops and bottoms of the containers before closing to prevent shifting during transit. Look for open spaces that can be filled and soft, lightweight items that can be used as filler. Clearly label all boxes with the shipper's name, detailed contents, and the room in which the box was packed. Preparing the inventory is a critical part of any containerized move. An inventory is a listing of all of the items that will be moved and a summary of their condition prior to the move. A properly prepared inventory will help to protect both the shipper and the company should a claim be filed following the move. While this seems very simple, doing a good inventory takes time. Let's begin by looking at the inventory form. A containerized shipments inventory is almost the same as a non-containerized inventory. The exception is that the containerized shipments require a more detailed description of the arrival and departure points, as well as a complete description of each item. If the containerized shipment is moving internationally, the inventory will be inspected by customs at both the port of debarkation and embarkation. If your company is using electronic inventories, the required information is still the same. Before you can begin your inventory, every item that is to be moved must be tagged with a unique number. Tags are small, uniquely numbered stickers that are used to identify by number anything that is being moved. Tags come in a variety of colors and can also contain the shipper's name and order number. Today, many carriers are using tags with barcodes that can be scanned into an electronic inventory. Never place the tag on a finished furniture surface. If there is more than one shipment in a residence, be sure to use a different color tag for each. This is important if only part of the shipment is being containerized and the remainder is moving by another mode or into storage. Each tag contains a lot number and an item number that will be recorded on the inventory. If you are not using electronic inventories, you should always write an inventory in ballpoint pen. Blue or black is preferred. Press down as you write, since you are going through several copies that need to be legible. Don't write in cursive. Print so that the inventory is easier to read. The item number or carrier reference number are used to create a unique number for each item that will be moving. The tag number that is being used for each item is placed in the carrier reference or CR ref column. On this inventory, the item number is 001. In the articles column, write a very brief description of the item being moved. Each item is to be listed separately. In this example, we will use an office desk. Other specifics such as living room or den can also be added, but keep it simple. For boxes, you should list the size of the box, its location, and whether it was carrier packed, CP, or packed by owner, PBO. The area that is marked Condition at Origin is the space in which you will enter any exceptions that apply for each piece of furniture. Let's look at a desk and see how the inventory might look. On the top, there is a small scratch, and on one leg there appear to be several small dents. To correctly identify them, you will need to be consistent in how you look at and write up exceptions. Think of each piece of furniture as a box. Start on the top and move from right to left as you look at the piece and front to back. Then, move to the front of the piece and use the same right to left and then top to bottom method. Move to the right-hand side, followed by the left-hand side and the rear. To write the description for this scratch on the top, this is what should be placed in the description area of the inventory. SC for scratched, 10 top, 5 left, and 7 rear. For the dent on the leg, the exception would look like this. D dented, 8 right, 2 bottom, 6 legs. Now let's see how this would look on an actual inventory form. As you put it all together, the inventory sheet for the desk might look like this. For every item being moved, there will be an item number, the description of the object, and the exceptions that you have noted. Before you finish your inventory, be sure to sign each sheet, have the shipper sign each sheet, and present them with their copy of the inventory. When an inventory is done correctly, it is a great tool to protect both the mover and the shipper. An incomplete inventory can cost time and money for both the shipper and the carrier. High-value items are usually small, delicate, or extremely fragile. Typical high-value items are china, figurines, crystal, artwork, or antiques. If your carrier uses high-value inventory forms, you will need to complete the description of the item, but leave the box open for the driver to confirm that the high-value item is enclosed and packed properly. Large high-value items will go into specially made crates, but the item will need to be wrapped in either paper pads, bubble wrap, or some protective material before being placed in the crate or container. Check with your dispatcher about restrictions on packing. Some companies allow only the senior packers or drivers to handle high-value items. It is a good practice if your company uses high-value inventories to notate and have the shipper sign none across the high-value inventory if the shipper indicates that they have no items of extraordinary value. The artistry in containerized shipment preparation is in the wrapping. Skill comes through experience and a desire to achieve excellence on behalf of the customer. Diaper and tuck wrapping are two techniques that will allow you to safely wrap almost any piece of furniture. You are probably familiar with both techniques using traditional blankets. For containerized shipments, you will use the same techniques but different materials. Let's take a quick look at all three types of wrapping. Diaper wrapping is most commonly used to protect chair and table legs, small cabinets, and tables. With a paper pad, begin by bringing the sides together and tape them. Next, tuck the top down over the legs and bring in both sides before bringing the bottom layer up to secure. It's just like wrapping a present. In some cases, the packer may add a small piece of cardboard to the bottom of each leg before wrapping to put additional protection between the bottom of the chair and what it will be resting upon. The final steps are to tuck the top layer down over the top of the chair, bringing in the sides and the back before securing the pad to the chair. Tuck wrapping is most commonly used on large pieces of furniture such as dressers, curios, tables, and cabinets. When preparing large pieces, you should look for protruding decorations such as handles or pulls. These should either be removed and packed in the parts box and notated as such on the inventory, or should be secured to reduce the likelihood of rub, scratch, or gouge damage to the piece or those pieces of furniture around them. If you are wrapping a large piece, it is a good idea to place several additional pads down before turning the table over to begin wrapping. Start by draping one pad over the front of the piece and tuck the extra padding under the top of the pad. Add a second pad over the front of the piece in the corner at the back. Then secure both pads to the piece with rubber bands at the top, bottom, and both sides. If you are using paper pads, secure them with tape at the top, bottom, and along both sides. Stretch wrapping is most commonly used for protecting upholstered furniture when moving, and for containerized shipments, it is a wonderful tool for holding drawers and doors in place. Stretch wrapping is also used to protect knobs and hardware from being damaged or damaging what is around them. One caution: if you know the shipment is going to be stored for long periods of time or be transported by sea, avoid using stretch wrap as it can allow moisture to build up under it and cause damage. The final step in wrapping a piece of furniture is to label each piece. This should be done with a non-smear marker, just as you would on a box. Include the shipper's name, contractor bill of lading number, the room in which it was packed, and a description of what is wrapped. At this point, the inventory label should also be added to the outside of the wrapped piece. Practicing good wrapping techniques will reduce the likelihood of damage, ensures that everything arrives safely, and it demonstrates your professionalism. Begin by inventorying each item before wrapping. Note any damage and point it out to the customer. Do not apply inventory tags to furniture. They should be placed on the outside once the piece is wrapped. Remove or reverse hardware such as screws, nuts, and bolts, and place them in the parts box. Remember to notate that inclusion on the inventory. When wrapping a table, lay several pads on the floor before turning it. The most common claim is for broken legs on chairs. Using cardboard as a second layer will provide protection. When wrapping furniture with lightly colored fabric, always wash your hands before you begin. Preparing the container is essential to the success of any containerized move. If this step is skipped or done haphazardly, then all the packing, inventorying, and preparing of the shipment is lost. Let's review how to prepare a container for shipment. Lift vans are large wooden crates and are the most commonly used container. They are designed to fit inside an intermodal container, which is a large, standardized shipping container that can be used across different modes of transport, from ship to rail to truck, without unloading and reloading their cargo. Lift vans are ideally configured so that 5 lift vans placed sideways will fit into a 20-foot intermodal container or 10 units in a 40-foot intermodal container. Let's start by exploring how to prepare a lift van for shipment of household goods. If your agency has containers or lift vans on hand and construction of a new container is not required, the following steps must be taken to ensure proper protection of your customer's household goods. Check each of the walls, ceiling, and floor for holes, nails, or cracks. Repair and caulk any damaged areas. If the container you are using has legs or feet, be sure to check that they are solid and can clearly support the forks of a forklift or pallet jack and the weight of the loaded container. The final step to preparing the outside of the container is to remove any markings from previous shipments. Now, let's prepare the interior of the container. Checking the interior starts just like the exterior. Check all the walls, ceiling, and floor for holes, cracks, nails, or any protruding objects. Any protruding objects should be removed to prevent scratching or rubbing against the household goods that will be placed inside. You should now be ready to caulk all seams, cracks, or repairs. One critical step in preparing a container is reducing the likelihood of condensation, which is often the chief cause of claims. A properly prepared container will eliminate condensation problems and prevent water damage. To protect the household goods in the container against moisture or water damage, the entire interior except the floor should be covered with moisture-resistant materials such as tar paper, visqueen, or plastic sheeting. Begin at the bottom of one side of the container. Remember not to cover the floor. Secure the material to the floor and roll it upwards, securing it to the wall, and then across the ceiling and down the other side. Repeat this process with a slight overlap of the material until you reach the front of the container. Now repeat these steps again. Start at the floor of the rear wall and roll the material upwards and across the ceiling, securing it along the way. Leave extra material to cover the door of the container after loading. By overlapping the insides this way, any water or moisture that gets through the wood will simply roll down the sidewall of the container and evaporate into the floor. The final step in preparing a container is to line the floor with cardboard. You are now ready to start loading the container. Steel containers or intermodal containers can be loaded 2 ways, either with preloaded lift vans or loose loaded with pad-wrapped household goods. They come in numerous sizes, but the most common are 20 and 40 feet. Preparation of an intermodal container starts as you would with a lift van. Inspect the walls and roof for holes, rust spots, or protruding objects. Water damage or the resulting mold damage can be extensive, but easily preventable by taking the time to correctly inspect and repair any damage that is found in the container. You will not need to line the interior of the intermodal container with waterproof material, but you will need to sweep the floor and line it with cardboard. The last type of container that you will probably work with is a cardboard container. These come in a wide variety of sizes to accommodate specific shipping needs and are most frequently used on air shipments or very small shipments. Once the container is prepared, it is time to consider how to load it. Density is the distribution of weight in cubic footage. In our industry's case, it is putting the most possible furniture in the smallest space. The concept of density is demonstrated in the following scenario using recommended loading methods. The kitchen chair on the left occupies a volume of about 3.75 cubic feet and will weigh approximately 10 pounds. So its density, which is weight divided by space, is about 2.7 pounds per cubic foot, or a density of 3. The box on the right, a standard book carton, occupies 1.5 cubic feet but may weigh 30 pounds. So its density would be about 20 pounds per cubic foot. The box has a density that is almost 11 times heavier than the chair. Although the densities of the chair and the box are vastly different from one another, when the chair and carton are combined, their average density is 7 pounds per cubic foot. 7 pounds per cubic foot is the industry average for a traditional blanket-wrapped shipment and is how most shipments' estimated weight is calculated. This is where the art of loading comes into play. If we load the carton between the legs of the chair, we have reduced the total volume or space that the two items occupy without increasing the overall weight. You have just increased the combined density from 7 pounds per cubic foot to about 10 pounds per cubic foot. If you were to place another chair on the seat or kneel the chair, your density would increase to almost 18 pounds per cubic foot. To help ensure that a shipment is tightly packed, use furniture as natural containers. Items that can be utilized as natural containers are dresser drawers, trash cans, entertainment centers, and china cabinets. You can load light linen, pillows, stuffed animals, and clothing into them. Be careful not to overload the drawers, since the additional weight may damage the item. When you are loading, be cautious about loading heavy items on top of lighter ones. The heavier item can break pieces of the item on which it is being stacked. Again, we do not recommend packing boxes within straight-back chairs. This is done to explain density only. Density is critical in containerized shipments for the following reasons. 1. A densely loaded shipment will occupy less space and use fewer containers, and will reduce shipping costs. And 2. A densely loaded shipment is less likely to shift and cause damage, and will reduce claims. When loading a container instead of loading a truck or trailer, you will still need to think in terms of tiers. Most furniture can be classified into two sizes, 18 and 24 inches. For the majority of pieces you handle, at least one of the dimensions, usually the depth, will be approximately 18 or 24 inches. The 18-inch tier is usually referred to as a standard tier. Some typical 18-inch pieces are chests of drawers, dressers, chairs, nightstands, and small appliances. For the 24-inch tier, some common pieces are washers, dryers, refrigerators, antique dressers, large TV stands, and some overstuffed furniture. There are, of course, some items that fall into neither category. Some pieces are smaller and some are larger, but these are the minority of pieces in a typical shipment and will form the junk tier. Most of the cartons used by the moving industry are designed with either an 18 or 24-inch dimension. For example, the standard dish pack, a 3 cubic foot carton, a 4.5 cubic foot carton, and some 1.5 cubic foot cartons are based on an 18-inch side approximately. Standard mattress cartons are 9 inches thick, so that two together equal the standard 18 inches. As you begin to build a standard tier, think of it as a pyramid, with the most solid pieces at the bottom or base, and with each successive layer getting lighter. The base layer is what everything rests on, so it needs to be built of solid, sturdy pieces. On top of this base should be the middle tier, or second row of 18-inch pieces. This row may consist of more base pieces like chests of drawers, etc. Ideally, the middle layer is lighter pieces. If the second base layer has legs, remove the legs and place them in the right-hand corner of the top drawer. The third tier should be still lighter items like dining room chairs, nightstands, 3.0 or light 4.5 cartons. The final tier, or filler, should be the smallest and lightest items of the shipment and should fill any empty spaces. This loading technique will ensure density and reduce the likelihood of anything shifting during transit. Once you have had the chance to build tiers, it will become easier to identify which pieces of furniture in a home will easily fit in each tier. The base layer should be the most solid pieces of furniture within the home. Again, think as if you're building a pyramid. Good base layer pieces are dish packs, footlockers, desks, and chests of drawers. If necessary, pack extra dunnage or pads between the furniture and the sidewalls of the container to prevent rubbing during shipment. On this base layer, if the piece you are loading has drawers, it is a good idea to pack the drawers toward the back of the container so that when you unload, you must pull the tops of the pieces towards you to remove them from the tier. This way, the drawers and doors stay closed. The middle layer should also be made up of solid pieces, but lighter than the previous layer. If what you're loading has legs, to avoid denting or dimpling the base layer, add extra pads between the layers. Just as you did with the base layer, nightstands, small desks, or tables with drawers should be packed with the drawers toward the rear of the container. The top layer of your tier should be lighter furniture and boxes. Items that traditionally make up this layer are dining room or straight-back chairs, side tables, and lightweight boxes, generally 4.5 or 6.0 cubic feet. If the furniture you are placing in the top layer might dimple or dent the layer below it, add some additional pads to better cushion the load. There may now be just a few inches between the top of the row of padded chairs and the ceiling of the van. This space can be filled. Filler is the term often used for long, light items such as skis, fishing rods, and bed rails. Make sure they are not too heavy for the chairs, wrap them, and press them gently into place. Try to get a tight fit to prevent the tier from bouncing during transit, but don't cram. With this layer in place, fill any existing space with either paper pads or used cardboard to top off the container. If you have loaded the container correctly, you should have very little excess space and have a tightly loaded shipment that will travel safely. If you are loading an intermodal container and have room once the shipment is loaded, you will need to build a bulkhead within the container to prevent the shipment from shifting. When possible, load the mattresses last so that they are against the bulkhead. Start by placing 2 2x4s on either side of the mattress and make sure they are as tight against the top and bottom of the container as possible. Next, wedge 2 additional 2x4s across the container and secure those to the original 2x4s. The last step is to nail a final 2x4 to the floor of the container to secure the bulkhead. If the container you are loading is traveling internationally, you will need to make sure that the wood you are using for the bulkhead is ISPM approved and stamped. ISPM wood is specially treated to prevent the movement of pests internationally. If the container is incorrectly loaded, the shipment will shift and the claim could be extensive. Load to achieve the maximum density to prevent movement that will cause damage. Maximum density will also reduce transportation costs. Load larger items first and build a good solid base using all available space and square off the load. Before you close the container, it is a good practice to take a picture of the loaded container. You are now ready to close and seal the container. To seal the lift van, roll the waterproof paper down over the door opening, caulk around the entire door frame, and attach the door. The final step in loading any container is banding and labeling the outside of the container. Once the door is clamped on, you will need to band the container with 1/2-inch steel strips. Use 2 strips around the bottom and top and 1 strip around the circumference. This will ensure the stability and security of the lift van. Labeling the outside of the lift van is critical and should include the shipper's name, who it is in care of, the destination agent, the port of debarkation, the final destination city, the gross, tare, and net weights, the number of pieces, and the exact cube. Loading containers can be complex, but when done correctly, can ensure your customers' belongings arrive safely at their destination. It will take some practice to be able to load efficiently and densely, but in time, you will perfect the art of loading containers.